back in our old stomping grounds today, in our old studio. Just for a few days here, we're cleaning up and dividing up our tools and supplies. And we had asked a question on Instagram where we'd said, what would your questions be if you were starting a garden? We thought we would just answer them here on YouTube. It'll be probably a 4-part series. If you're getting started and you are overwhelmed with all of this, how to grow cut flowers, we did create some courses, very beginner friendly. Just one is how to plan, and that helps you to go through all the process of planning your garden, what flowers to choose, and also how to grow. So then we go through a lot of the process of actually growing the cut flowers. Those are online classes. They're available at any time. So you can just head to our website. We'll have a link in the description and you can check those out if that's something you'd be interested in. The first question we're going to answer was first time must at a new property. And I'm assuming the person that asked this was things to grow if you're a first time gardener. But just right off the bat, we both would say a must is getting your soil tested and amending your soil if it needs it. It's not what most people want to hear, but we learned the hard way that is very, very important to get that right to start with.
It's a little like building a house on a really shaky foundation.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't get the foundation right, if you don't get the soil right in your garden, you're gonna have trouble. You'll have stressed plants, you'll have bugs, you'll have
Disease.
weeds.
Yeah.
Like weeds like poor soil.
We can't tell you what you need to add to your soil. You should get the soil tested at your local extension office. Often they'll make recommendations for what to put in the soil to help it.
And I would also say add organic matter. So that's like compost, like decomposed leaves, just some kind of organic matter. That always helps with increasing the soil life, like feeding the soil life, and then that in turn feeds your plants.
So in my new garden, it's very sandy clay soil. Last year, Myron put on a lot of chicken litter and lime, which I think just boosted the overall health of the garden. The garden did amazing last year. We had a veggie garden. This year, he also did lime and cow manure. Last year, we also added leaf mold, and we're gonna do that again this year.
I am basically just starting out with, I'm doing no dig, so I'm not tilling. So I'm just killing the grass with cardboard, and that has leaf compost on top of it. I am going to have to add other compost, and I did a soil test, and I'm going to have to work in a few other things too, I think.
But then as far as flowers go, if you're a first-time gardener, there's some easy flowers to grow. And we do have a blog post about that. We'll have that link in the description as well. But right off the top of our heads, zinnias,
sunflowers,
cosmos, sunflowers, gomphrena,
celosia is easy.
Those all pretty much just grow themselves.
Right.
They will reward you for a little bit of work.
Yeah.
We would say stay away from like ranunculus, poppies,
and roses
to get a couple years in experience. We usually say don't try to sell flowers until your second year. You do you. If you want to try it, go ahead, but we wouldn't.
If you are a very experienced gardener in like vegetable garden, you may have a little better grasp on everything and you can just sell the first year. But if you've never grown flowers and you don't really know what you're getting into, I'd say give yourself a year or two to just learn how to do that.
Yeah. Someone else asked for an update on our favorite wedding cut flowers. Since we both got married last year, we do probably have an update on that. We were talking through this yesterday and she said, well, we don't grow anything that we wouldn't use in our weddings. I don't think.
Yeah.
She likes some stuff I don't, but I think I would still use it in my wedding. I got married in the spring and I had, let me just look at my list here.
Peonies.
I had peonies. Yeah, we had a lot of peonies. If you want to see my wedding video, we talk about the flower disasters. I'll put that up here. Delphinium, larkspur, lupin,
Bells of
Ireland, chamomile. That was like my favorite flower in the whole wedding. Chamomile is kind of a trending flower for weddings, so definitely it's easy to grow. So definitely grow it if you can.
Did you say ranunculus?
No, ranunculus. I would do that. What did you grow for your wedding?
Then in the summer, I had a summer wedding, so I had a lot of zinnias. I went with the Queen Lime Red. I like scabiosas. I liked gomphrena. I had celosia, julep opar, blackberries, the branches, the greens and the berries, dahlias. And you also had, or did you have Orlea?
I wanted it, but we didn't.
That would be pretty for spring.
Yeah.
Orlea and cress.
And bachelor buttons is what I wanted.
Nigella as well. Those would all be pretty for spring.
And Scabiosa for summer.
Oh, foxglove.
Oh, foxglove.
Summer. Definitely have to have foxglove. I was planning for dahlias. I wanted tons of dahlias, but very few of them were blooming by the time I got married. I knew it would be a little iffy, so I just ordered in some roses. We had another question come in about how not to get overwhelmed and how to know what to prioritize when you're starting a garden. First of all, I would say get really clear on what you're actually doing with your flowers. If you're growing them for market, like you're gonna have to make yourself a plan that reflects that. If you're just growing flowers to learn how to grow flowers, maybe you're growing them for yourself at home, or you do want to eventually turn it into a business, take that into consideration too. But you have to know what you want to do with your flowers. And I know it can be a little hard to figure out a plan because you're like, I got to get it right. But you can change it. You can always pivot. Know what you're going to do with your flowers.
If you're wanting to grow cohesive bouquets for markets, it does take quite a bit of planning. And again, we have a course that tells you how to plant a garden. And I think one of the best parts about the course is the Q&A discussion on the side. If you have a specific question about any part of planting or growing cut flowers, ask it there and we'll answer it for you.
And it may already have been asked and answered, so that's an extra resource too. Something else we thought about when we were talking about this was that one year where we weren't real clear on what we were doing with our flowers. We just planted rows and rows and rows of flowers and had way more flowers than we had no market for them.
We didn't have time to go to market. We were so busy taking care of and harvesting and throwing away the flowers.
We hadn't figured out the selling part of it, and I think if we'd have gotten clear on the selling part of it, or else gotten clear that we don't have a market for our flowers yet, we're still learning, then we could have cut back on all the things we grew. Maybe just grew a little bit of each thing.
And we do have a video on ways to sell your flowers if you're wondering about that. So I'll put that up here, somewhere up here.
You should also be realistic about how much time you have to put into your flower garden. Is it a side hustle? Are you full-time? Know how much time you have. Because our side hustle, I would say we spent an average of 10 hours a week?
Probably.
During the summer. With early on that would be planting more. During the middle of the summer it was cutting and
harvesting and making bouquets and selling them. So that was two of us, each of us 10 hours probably.
And we don't have that big of a garden. You have to kind of figure that one out as you go.
It's better to start small and slowly add. I think that will eliminate a lot of frustration for you. Another question we got was, is there any way to get a grip on the seasons? Do I plant spring flowers in spring or do they flower in spring? And the answer is yes.
We plan a season in advance for all of our flowers. So basically at the end of one growing season, like say October, November, December, we'll plan for the next season.
If you wait to plant until the season is there, you're probably not going to get the seeds, tubers, bulbs, all that you want for your garden.
A general rule would be to sow your seeds 4 to 6 weeks before you actually want to harvest them. Now that doesn't hold true over all flowers. So you have to figure out how long it takes each flower to mature. But that would give you an idea. Figure out how long it takes for them to mature, when do you want it, and then backtrack to see when you would actually plant them.
So this person asked if they should plant spring flowers in spring. Well, yeah, you can't really plant them. Some you can plant in winter or the fall before. But if you want spring flowers, you're probably going to have to start seeds indoors to have them during the season, depending where you live, of course. But that's why we start a lot of seeds indoors.
We recently wrote a blog post about that, how to know when to start your seeds indoors. So we'll link that as well, and that can give you a little more information on how to go about planning when to plant your seeds.
The next question we got was how to figure out the best layout for your garden, I'm assuming. And they're thinking of this mainly due to drip tape lines, etc.
Here again, I would say it's important to know what kind of garden you want. Do you want a cottage garden? Do you want a cutting garden where it's like market rows? That's going to be the most efficient for your drip lines because a cottage garden is a little more cut up. Market rows would just be long straight rows, and it'd be easy to have a main line with a lot of different valves, and that's going to be easier to lay out. We'll leave a link for our favorite place to find our irrigation. That's DripWorks.
She also recently heard a podcast on Jenny Love's No-Till Flowers podcast. You can just look for that wherever you listen to podcasts. And it was about pulse watering. And it's full of a lot of good information. So if you want to know if you're interested in irrigation and how to use less water irrigating but have just as good results, go listen to that podcast. So that concludes our first Q&A, and stay tuned for the next one.